If you're a pop culture junkie who loves TV, film, music, comedy, and other really important stuff, then you've come to the right place. Get ready and settle in for Classic Conversations, the best pop culture interviews in the world. That's right, we circled the globe so you don't have to. If you're ready to be the king of the water cooler, then you're ready for Classic Conversations with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Gene, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get the show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody. It's episode 268 of Classic Conversations. As always, I am your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Great to have you back for what's sure to be one of the classicest episodes of all time. My guest today is none other than Park Overall. That's right. You loved her as Nurse Laverne Todd on Empty Nest, in Biloxi Blues, Mississippi Burning, Talk Radio. Oh, we're going deep. Lots of great stuff coming up in just a few seconds. And in these few seconds, do not miss my conversation with comedian Joe Matarese, streaming live now for your listening enjoyment. Tons of great stories and insight into the world of comedy with Joe Matarese. But right now, we're diving in with Park Overall. We're talking all about her acting career, why she left her acting career, her current activism. So much greatness coming at you right now. All right, everyone, I'm excited to introduce my next guest, star Broadway film, TV, environmental and women's rights activist, three-time Golden Globe nominee, loved her in Biloxi Blues, The Critic, Reba, and of course, as Laverne Todd on Empty Nest. Welcome to the show, Park Overall.
Hello, darling. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. How are you?
So you're sitting up there in Detroit.
I am in Detroit, Michigan, just outside of Detroit, Michigan. Yes.
I like that Michael Moore.
I met Michael Moore once.
Did you?
I was at a Detroit Music Awards, and he was the host. It was in downtown Detroit. He was like skirting out early, and we just happened to be leaving early as well. And I met him on right outside, and I got a photo with him. Yeah.
Very cool.
So this was, I think, a long time ago, like probably before Bowling with Columbine or any of those.
But it's so important, I think, to take your stardom or whatever and use it towards something constructive, which he's a master at. And I really admire that.
He's made some very interesting documentaries for sure.
Very, very. You sound like you're from Ohio or the Midwest, like Michigan-y, like.
I am from Michigan.
Yeah, you've got that inflection of the Midwest. Yeah, you do. Interesting.
Park, are you saying I have the accent? I think of the two of us, you're the one when on the.
Yeah, you do. The accent, you absolutely do.
Cool. I got a lot of questions for you.
Do you?
I do. My main one is, and we can jump around a little bit, but what do you feel in your background prepares you the most for the time that you were on the Johnny Carson show with not just Robin Williams, but also Jonathan Winters at the same exact time?
You have done your homework. I'm very impressed with that question. I was at a NAPTE convention, and this boy came over to me, 30s, and just said, Ms. Overall, I just have to say to you, you don't know me, but my wife and I would like to tell you that you are the bravest woman in the world. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, that Johnny Carson show. And I said, you know what? You're right. I thought I was going to have a heart attack backstage. When I came and they told me who was on, I really thought I was going to die backstage. I couldn't believe it. I really had no warning, nothing. And I felt I was thrown to the wolves, and it worked out fine. It was fine. But I've never been that terrified of anything in my life, ever.
Was it a mix of being terrified, but also like, holy cow, I've got a front row seat?
There's still not words to explain that kind of fear and that kind of like, what? I'm out. They're throwing me out there and I still will never get over it. And I suppose it's a great tribute to me that they thought I could handle it. And I guess I did. But I was terrorized. And it turned out just fine. I would have liked to have gotten to know Jonathan Winters a little better, but it was hard to tell what was going on there. I couldn't get a beat on that.
Yeah, the two of them just sort of took over. I was watching it, like, amazed at how well you kind of went, how well you went toe to toe with them and handled being there and not knowing what was coming at you front row. And then part of me was also like, I mean, this was your time on the Johnny Carson show with Johnny. They could have known to maybe chill it a little bit when it wasn't their segment.
No, but I was a beginner and a girl, and those guys thought like that. Carson era. I'm not saying anything negative. It's just a different way the world is turning now with women and Me Too and all that stuff. So it's a different kind of thing. And I always knew that, standing there with Ed McMahon and Freddie, what was his name? Lovely Freddie. He was so lovely. I just knew what that was about instinctively. You grow up in the South, I think they teach you that. And I was so happy they were running with it to get the pressure off me that I was thrilled. And I thought Robin Williams was hysterical. I just thought he was hysterical. Power tools and all that. I thought it was great. And I was just glad to have heat off me. Thank you for a wonderful question, because that was a highlight of my life. That was huge. And I didn't see it coming. It blew me away. It turned out all right. Thereby, the fates, it went okay. I'm just grateful that it did.
You were on The Tonight Show at least 10 times, right? I mean, you were on a lot.
At least 9, yeah. I was told he liked me. But can I tell you my favorite Johnny Carson story? Is not about Johnny. I really liked him very much. I liked them all. But it was Doc. And Doc always had this dog with him. And it was just this English bulldog. And you know how funny they look? And her name was Lucy. And I would always speak to Lucy. And I thought a lot of Lucy. And that seemed to mean a lot to Doc. And the last time I was there, I said, that's not Lucy. And it wasn't. It was a lookalike, but it wasn't Lucy. And he was like, God loves you. God loves you, which was really quite sweet. I remember people by their animal.
I have a little Maltese.
Oh, you've got a Maltese. You're a Maltese boy. Oh, I've got the Wawa type things myself. Yeah.
Amazing. So, all right. So awesome. So, Park,
Yeah.
How do you end up from Tennessee to New York? Like, what's in between there? In school, were you in theater? When did you know you wanted to be an actress and follow that path?
I don't know. I just really enjoyed it. It's nice to be able to do what you enjoy. And I kind of thought that I might be good at it. I wasn't sure, but I thought it might be. My father would always come to the plays and come backstage and say that was almost professional. And so I wanted to be professional. So it turned out not to be what I thought it was. And it turned out not to be a life choice for me. But I wouldn't have traded it. And I enjoyed it very much. And I got very, very lucky for a little girl from Tennessee. Very lucky, and did all right. I did all right. And Johnny Carson liked me, which made it very nice. I turned down Letterman several times.
How come?
Because one night I was watching, long before I was pseudo-famous, he had an old man on who remembered every single person he'd ever met in his life. And he had a little book in which he had written down many people that he had met in his life. And David Letterman opened it up and said, oh, in March 1958, you met Jesus Christ. And everybody laughed. And he said, that's right. And then he took him backstage to meet people, everybody on the crew and everything. And he was making fun of that old man. And I just didn't care for that bit, that it was mean and abusive. And that's why. I hope you don't mind me being very forthcoming, dear.
Oh, no. I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. Who else do you want to dish on?
I just thought he was mean, and I didn't want to deal with that. I also said no to Howard Stern, but we used to ride horses a lot out there in Malibu. I had a farm out there, I guess you call it ranch, and I would ride with Karen Zontelli and some other friends. And we were riding around Lake Malibu, and that's Lake Malibou. instead of BU. There's this lake where they say you need a board of directors to protect you from the board of directors of the housing association. And we were riding in the road. It's a very narrow road out there. And here comes a car with the top down. And it was Howard Stern and his then lovely wife, very beautiful woman, I thought, with the top down. And boy, that man, I was really surprised that a Jewish boy like that knew how to drive around horses. And I will always respect him for that. Said no to his show.
Us Jewish boys know a thing or two, so
Do you know how to drive around a horse?
No, not that. But I'm sure I know other things that would impress you in my Jewishness.
Yes, I love Jewish boys. You all are always questioning, and that is not something that we are taught, and it's a problem for us. Clearly, I think. It is very important to question why for everything, I think, and makes life a lot easier to understand if you're always questioning. Now, that's just my opinion.
Yeah, it's a good one. You have great opinions, Park.
Well, I have a lot of them. I'll tell you that.
All right. So you're in the plays, and then you make your move to New York, right? Late 20s, you're in New York, and then you're on off Broadway. How were you making your way in New York? Was it a big shift coming from Tennessee to the big city of New York, to the Big Apple?
It's very strange, because really the rich and the powerful really live in New York. That's where the center, the hub of the world is, New York City. And I just didn't care for that place at all. Now, in California, you can drive to the Walmarts. You can do just what I do in Tennessee. You can do it in California. Any of it. A lot more traffic, a lot more headache, but you can do it. In New York, I kept being afraid that, are we allowed to cuss on here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I was always afraid a air conditioner would fall out of the window on my head. So I was always looking up. I was terrorized of air conditioners falling on me. And one day, this lovely man said to me, I've got to tell you, a pigeon has pooped on you. And I had on a black duster, and he had pooped on me. And then he said, but and I don't know this guy from anywhere. He said, it's very good luck. And I said, is it? And he said, yeah, it is. And he went on, and that was it. And I got the part that day. I was on my way to an audition. I got that part.
That's awesome. I Googled real quick, and just so you can feel better moving forward, 0 confirmed cases of death by air conditioner.
Is that right?
Yeah. So I may have I feel like I may have opened up.
You're not used to how Southern boys Jimmy rig things. I kept being afraid you Yankees would Jimmy rig it just the same as we do here. I was worried, paranoid. And I didn't really care for New York, although in retrospect, it's a pretty great city. Pretty great.
So you're making your way in plays, right? I mean, you're having success in plays.
That's where it's at. That's really where it's at, the theater. That's what you're made of right there. I really love my stage work above all else, and that's my best work, I think.
Is there a different rush? Do you enjoy that rush more than like filming a TV show?
It's a whole different thing because the audience is your energy. What the audience gives you back is what you feed off. So on a hot night, there's nothing like that in the world. When your audience is open and giving and want to see the play, there's nothing like that energy in a room anywhere else in the world. Maybe it happens with musicians, I would think, maybe. It's very intimate. It's an intimate gift-giving thing, very intimate, and it feels transcendental, really. Whereas you're not going to get that with TV, and you're not going to get it with film, obviously, because you don't have an audience. With TV, you do, and you can get close, but nothing like the stage. The stage, nothing can go wrong. You're there, it's live. That's it. Make with what you got. If you go up, you're up, and you better figure out what to do. All that stuff. A prop doesn't work. Anything can happen. And so it's in the moment, it's really live, and it's really about that giving between audiences, which is why it's so interesting in New York, because New York loves their theater. They love it. They love it. Whereas I'm not sure you get that feeling anywhere else. Just not sure.
It is a rush. I do stand-up comedy, so I kind of understand.
Oh, so you understand that. Sure you do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. stand-up is a whole nother. That I went to one of those in Los Angeles. What a meat market, honey. What, do you go get laid all the time or what? I mean, really?
No, I know.
What is that about?
I think that's for people with guitars. I was also married when I was doing comedy, so I never found it to be a lady magnet for me, at least. That could also just be me. Sorry to interrupt. I have to take a quick break while I go examine my life and why comedy didn't get me laid more. I'm kidding. I'm joking to my wife. That's a joke. But let me know if you think it was me or the comedy. Also, who's got the accent here? Tweet at me. Let me know. Anyway, thanks for your support of the sponsors. When you support sponsors, you're supporting us here at Classic Conversations, and that's how we keep the lights on. And now back to my conversation with Park Overall. We're going to go a little deeper into her comedy club experiences. And we're back.
I've never seen anything like it. It was that one there in Los Angeles on Sunset Plaza. That one is where I went. Also went to one in New York called Who's on First. It was there when I was young. I don't know if it's still there. Really was quite a funny evening. Stand-up is really scary to me. How do you do that? Do you wing it or do you memorize all that?
It is not winged at all. I think that's more like improv.
It's not winged. Oh. So it's real work.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody says something and you react, that's off the cuff. But yeah, no, when you go up, you have material that you're doing. Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. I've always wondered because I thought I would try my hand at it. But then I began to think, wait a minute, is this a monologue that I've got to stick to, or am I freer than that? I really didn't know how one did it.
I took a writing class, and with a comedian, and they taught us how to work for the stage and get that first 7 minutes going. That's how I did it.
And so you memorized every word?
Oh, yeah. And the timing and everything. Yeah.
Well, I've always wondered, wow, okay. Do they all do that, or do some of them wing it?
I mean, I think most stand-up comics know what they're going to say. And you can tell because you can go to the next show and it's pretty much the same. I mean, there's some folks.
I see.
Some folks might be better at kind of going with it than others.
Uh-huh.
But for the most part, stand-up shows you have your material and then you
roll with that.
Yeah, you roll with it. Yeah.
And you stay on it. Well, I tell you who I like is that D.L. Hughley. I like him. He makes me laugh very much.
He's very funny.
Do you cuss like that?
No, I don't.
No.
Okay. But I just don't. It's funny. I don't cuss that much on stage. And then sometimes I'll be off stage and I'll be dropping like F-bombs. And I was just like, but on stage, I don't really. It's rare. It'd be rare. Not that I have opinion of it. It just
seems to be part and parcel for the ones of a certain era there when I was in acting and all that. There seemed to be a lot of that going on. There still is with DL and several others. But now on HBO and these things that have these people, honey, I'm just not laughing. Are you?
I enjoyed live comedy more than the kind of the taped comedy. I think there's something, because what you mentioned earlier about the energy you get when you're on stage or when you are on stage doing plays, to me, it works in reverse as well. So probably for a play as well, but specifically for stand-up comedy, when you're in the audience, you're feeding off the fact that the person you're watching is live and it's happening at that moment, and that the audience is experiencing it with you at the same exact time. And there's that whole energy of that combination of it together that I think makes live stand-up comedy much
really good.
Yeah, and much more enjoyable than watching it on Netflix and stuff.
Yeah. Cool. I would be very afraid to do stand-up comedy. I just, that would be difficult, and you would feel very, very exposed, I would think. And if you have a bad night, I bet that's hell.
You can have bad nights, absolutely. And then that's what sort of drives you to make sure you have less bad nights.
Yeah.
You can always have an off night when you're doing something live and reacting and the people are hearing it. But I love it. I love it. So, Park, all right, you're in New York and you're doing like The Skin of Our Teeth, The Seagull, Betty Lou, Biloxi Blues. You're making your way through all the plays, the Neil Simon play, which then you did the movie too.
Yes. time goes by, and it was called the Chelsea Theater Group or something. I forget the name of it, but it was this testing ground for something, for plays. And I ended up by accident there, and Gene Sachs was in the room, and that's how I got put in Biloxi Blues. And I did a reading for some other play. It's funny. It's really just about being present. It really is about being present and being there. Just going to every audition you can, taking every reading that you can get yourself into and being there. It just happened that's how that happened.
So was ending up in the movie Biloxi Blues sort of just the way you kind of just transitioned from theater to movies?
Yeah, that was my first big movie. It sure was. That was so interesting to see Mike Nichols and Matthew and
Matthew Broderick.
Yeah, it was just interesting to see how clever those guys were. I mean, they're just clever. They were clever and fun. Ray Stark, I particularly adored the producer and wanted to marry him so I could be Park Stark for a minute. I just adored him. And he was, probably 70, 80 at the time. And they were putting on my makeup and I was in that underwear. And he walked by me and stopped, looked at us and said, "Oh, come on. Nobody's going to be looking at your face." Kept moving. Just hilarious. Hilarious. I adored him. I adored them all, really. But that was my first movie, yes. And I got rave reviews for that was helpful.
And Christopher Walken was in that movie too.
Yes, so I went to speak to him and I opened my mouth and nothing came out. It was my first movie star.
Oh, that is hilarious.
He smiled at me very kindly.
He seems like he'd be a nice guy. This was like the beginning of like the year of Park overall. 1988 was a huge year for you. You had 4 movies come out that year.
And I'll tell you something else. I got audited by the state of New York.
What?
I got audited. I had 4 movies that year. I got audited, and those bastards owed me $25.
The state of New York owes you $25?
That is correct, and they sent me a check.
Did you cash it or just frame it?
I should have framed it, actually. It made me so mad. Some little actor from Tennessee gets a few things under her belt and they audit her. What is that? What kind of welcome is that? Made me furious. Anyway.
That feels targeted, Park. That feels targeted.
I felt it was really wrong. And imagine how many young actresses they do it to. Think about that.
I'm going to try not to think about it, Park, because it'll make me sad and angry, and I don't... But, okay, so Biloxi Blues, Vibes, Mississippi Burning, and Talk Radio. So you're working with Oliver Stone, Gene Hackman. I love
Oliver Stone. I just love him. I adore him. And he's an SOB from way back. And hillbilly girls don't put up with that. We just don't. So he and I get on just excellent. I just think he's a great director, a great man. I mean, could you imagine that intellect? I'm really into big frontal lobes. I'll tell you, that's my thing, is big frontal lobes. And Oliver has, and I just think he's great.
I remember Talk Radio. That's the one about the talk show host, kind of like the Howard Stern type character in a way, right? The shock jock.
In a way, I suppose. I think he was more political than he was sexual, wasn't he?
Yeah. Eric Bogosian. Eric Bogosian. Yeah. It was good. I remember that. I like all those Oliver Stone movies in that era.
Yeah, he was a pretty great thinker. That's why I thought a lot of Oliver. He's a thinker.
Right. He's got the lobe, that frontal lobe.
Yeah, that big lobe. Yeah, just awesome. I enjoy his sense of humor, and he has one. Basically, he terrorizes people. I was never terrorized by him at all. There's a certain kind of man, I think, in Hollywood that I think men feel differently about Southern women. I'll just tell you, I think they do. I think they're a little more cautious with a Southern woman. Southern women are, what are we? We're sugar and spice and everything nice until... And then when you cross that line, it's not pretty. And I think all of us in the South have been raised that way to a certain degree, if we've been lucky with good parents and that kind of Southern outlook. And I really enjoyed almost every director I ever had, really a lot. I enjoyed them a lot. And they were all Hugh Hudson. I had small roles in big things. That was exciting just to be around that kind of energy.
That's awesome. And then Mississippi Burning, Alan Parker, film directed, with Gene Hackman, William Dafoe, and Frances McDormand.
Whom I adore. That is the loveliest woman in America. That is a lovely, lovely woman. I adore Frances. She's lovely. And that was an interesting film in that I learned about British filmmaking. Those guys get on down the road with it. Time is money. Light is time. Money is light and time. It's just, boom. That was really something to see that one go. They had a very hot French cameraman. He won the Academy Award. That is his name, but he sure did.
And then Alan Parker, he's made a lot of great movies. I The Commitments. I loved Evita. I loved Evita. That's like,
I haven't seen it, but I loved The Commitments. I've probably seen it 3 or 4 times. I really loved The Commitments. And everybody in it, every actor.
Yeah, The Commitments. Great soundtrack too. Oh my God.
Birdie. I've worked with some great ones, I'll tell you.
What was Park overall like in 1988? I mean, because this is a lot. You're coming off Broadway and all of a sudden you're in 4 movies the same year. This is a big year. This is a big deal. What do you start? Do you start planning? Do you I'm going to be a movie star? Did you want to go to TV? Did you want to keep doing movies? Like, what was going through your head is like, all of a sudden it's like.
Get up and go to the next audition. And you might have 4 auditions in one day. You go to them all. You try to get every one of them you can. And I've got to tell you, and I mean this from my heart, back then roles were better than they are now. I'm sorry. There was just more to them. I get scripts now, and out of 10 scripts, there'll be one good one. Off topic, I watched a series on MGM Plus, I guess. I'm very confused about my Roku, but at any rate, it was on Prime, and it was called A Spy Among Friends. It had Guy Pearce and Damian Lewis, who I didn't know who was till now. But anyway, my point is the women in it. It's a spy story, and it's about Kim Philby and all that stuff that happened. And it was so good. And the women in it, there was something there. It wasn't your standard wife. It wasn't your standard hooker or temptress. It was real women in real big jobs doing real big work. I highly recommend it. It was just wonderful.
Well, let me return the favor. The Diplomat on Netflix with Kerry Russell.
I could get 5 minutes of that, honey. I am the most hoity-toity viewer in America. I am a total snob. I'm a snob. I only watch foreign stuff. Foreign, all the time.
Well, I loved it. Oh, I hope this doesn't.
Really?
I hope this doesn't tear us apart, Park.
For you, I will try it again. But okay. No, that's not my cup at all.
I thought Kerry Russell was great in it. But all right, well, we can agree to disagree. I'll still check out A Spy Among Us. We'll still do that. All right, let's get back to Park anyway. We got to get back to Park overall.
All right. Well, let's get back to you. Tell me more about you.
Nobody wants to know about me. Everyone wants to know about you and working with Arnold Schwarzenegger in Kindergarten Cop.
Arnold, yes. And Penelope. Penelope was a friend of mine for a time there. That was up in, where were we? Portland or something? Where was that? It was a pretty place, and they put us in pretty houses. I remember that. I think I've got that right. They all sort of run together, darling, and it was a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
It's the stage work and the stage friends that are most memorable, really. And Union 1. Wasn't it Union 1? All those guys were drunk, man. They were just drunk.
Let's talk about something that was a long time ago, but I'm sure you remember. Empty Nest.
Yes. The no one will let me forget, will they? I loved Richard Mulligan with all my heart. He was no one could have had as much luck as me as to be on a show with a man that professional. I've never seen that kind of professionalism before or since. He was always 15 minutes early. I learned a lot from him about acting. For instance, you take a script and there's your goes to desk, sits down. He took a black pen and marked all through that. And I said, you you don't do the stage directions? And he said, I'll read them one time. I don't have to do what it says. I can do it how I feel it more organically or have that acting prep. He taught me that. He was the most professional, wonderful man ever, bar none.
Did you guys just laugh a lot on set?
I did. I was quite unwell at the time. I had something called fatigue syndrome, so I was quite unwell. And I didn't know what was wrong, so I wasn't all that much fun, to be sure. But God, what a gentleman and what a great man. And David, of course, is a hoot. A hoot. David and I are still in touch. Richard died. David and I are still in touch, and he's just as much of a hoot. I think he's on his 5th wife now. I may have that wrong. And he's got a great sense of humor. That was a long 7 years is what that was. It was long. The Golden Girls were across the lot. Got to see them every day, and that was kind of trippy. They always had their dogs with them. They're big animal people.
I did not know. Well, the Empty Nest was a spinoff of Golden Girls.
Yes, or something like that, down the street or something. Yes. And I loved my producer, Paul Witt. I loved him very, very much. He was a great man. He found me. He was good to me. He was an interesting man who put up with a lot of temperament out of me and knew how to handle back in the day. He was a great man. He died recently, which was quite upsetting for me because he was really good to me in a artist to producer way. He knew how to talk to me, and nobody else seemed to. And I didn't know if it was the Southern thing, or I was just weird, or they were weird, or Yankees, or what. I didn't know, but Paul got me, and I appreciate it a lot.
It's nice that you had that on the set.
Yeah, he was, and he was a great deal of fun. He told me just the most memorable little stories, like he had dated a girl at the University of Virginia, and she lived in a great, manor house, and they went in, and he said, you don't have any rugs. And she said, no, we didn't inherit any. Stuff like that. Really fun stuff. He was a lovely, lovely man. And I miss him. I miss Richard very much.
Well, it's amazing that you have so many memories, so many great memories.
Yeah. People ask me who was your favorite person. Bianca Jagger, period. Over and out, end of. Bianca Jagger. What she has to do with anything, I don't know. That's the most fascinating person I ever met in my life. Bar none. Would give anything in the world to see her again. I just adored her. When you're an actor, you understand certain things about people. Actors are very self-absorbed people. They have to be. Their business is themselves. That's their industry. So it's particularly tiresome in men. With women, you can sort of deal with it, but in men, it's very tiresome. For me, it was tiresome for me. You just didn't want to fool with them because they're bigger than you. And that's sort of how it just was, maybe still is. I don't know. I'm out of that game now, but I found it very tiring. And I found most actors tiring. There's some very sharp ones. Jean Smart, adored her. Very sharp lady and fun. We were shooting this night scene and a rain scene, and those are always awful. And it's dark and it, the rain hose and all that. Jean is diabetic as well, as am I. And Jean yells, could she get aboard for the phone booth before she steps in this puddle? And Peter Levin was the director, and he came up and looked and said, Jean, it's just a small puddle. And she said, it's Atlantis.
Oh, that is so funny. I love Jean Smart. She's amazing.
Yeah. I don't know, as an old diabetic, how Jean has that kind of energy, and more power to her. Big old strapping, Nordic, healthy Seattle girl, as I recall. I just didn't get those kind of Jeans. Jean was a trip. I really liked Jean a lot.
You guys did Overkill, the Eileen Wuornos story about it was about a prostitute becomes a serial killer, right?
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Had to take a quick break. And now back with Park Overall. We're going to dive into some Empty Nest. A couple questions on Empty Nest. Oh, you got to meet Garth Brooks. Did they work that in for you?
Now, let me tell you about that, because Garth Brooks was just something that I didn't get. To me, Garth Brooks was a fat cowboy. And I mean, the world was all about Garth Brooks, and I just was not getting it at all. Music didn't move me. Nothing about him moved me. He was on a show. Everybody was excited. I was like, okay, I'll be polite. I don't care one way or the other. After the second show or before the second show, you do a live show at 7, you do another one at 9, you have dinner in between and take notes. Okay. Garth sang for the audience alone with his guitar. I have goosebumps just thinking of it. Now I got it. I don't think there was a dry eye in the house, and I was just carried on his voice to another world. He was tremendous beyond. You see, that overproduced country stuff doesn't do for me, but to hear his voice alone in that big room, and you could hear a pin drop. I mean, it was brilliant. It was stunning. And suddenly I got it. And what a nice guy too. Really nice guy.
That's awesome. But I think that plays into kind of what we were talking about earlier. Like sometimes you got to see it live, and it's like,
and feel it. You have to feel that it's a magic, that a charisma that a person has. Like Elvis had it, whatever it was, he had it. And it is the thing. And Garth Brooks has it, whatever it is. And plus he was fun and likable and all of that stuff. So I really enjoy the old folks, though. Eddie Brackett, Danny Thomas, Richard Mulligan. What was his name? Alfred Hyde White. Does that sound right? Old man.
Wilfred Alex White.
Yeah. And he was on the show, and I'll just never forget him. I may forget his name, but I'll never forget him.
Wilfred Hyde White.
Wilfred Hyde White, an old man and a gentleman that I'll never forget. I liked the old people best. Leave It to Beaver's mother, Barbara
Billingsley.
What a lovely woman. Oh my goodness, what a lovely woman. And she said back when they did Leave It to Beaver, when you do TV like that, you do 3 weeks on, 1 week off. The idea being that's when you go to the doctor, to the dentist, get your hair done, whatever. She said back in her day, they didn't do that. No one was ever sick. No one had all these appointments. It just wasn't like that back in the day. So it shows you how the industry is changing, and I don't know what it all means, but it means something. And that was one of the lovely, and she brought her family, and they're very memorable old people that were there, that were stars, big stars, and they meant a lot to me. Mary Hartman, Louise Lester was there. I enjoyed that very much. She's a trip, and I enjoyed her. Susan Anspach.
So many great memories.
Really good memories.
You had the built-in classic crew, too, with the Golden Girls right across the hall, B. Arthur and all that.
And you'd see those guys walking around, too. One of my great regrets is, you'll come up with his name, and for people watching this, names go first, believe me. I was at Cedar Sinai getting my lunch. I forget what was wrong with me that time. And there he sat, the great old sort of fat comedian, dead now. And he was sitting alone at a table. And I thought, Bart, go over there. Go. And I couldn't do it. I figured if nobody else in there went up to him, neither could I. A funny thing happened on the way to the Forum, those kind of movies. He was in those. Not Sid Caesar, but the fatter.
Dom DeLuise?
There you go. There he was. And I didn't have the guts to go. And I could kick myself. Even if he'd been rude, at least I would have had the courage to go up and say, hi, I'm new. I'm going to try it. Tell me about your life. I'd give anything if I would have, but I didn't.
And I'm sure he was sitting there going, oh my God, there's Park Overall.
I'm not thinking so. That's a funny story. I was pulling into one of the gates at one of the studios, and here's the guard, and I look up and I said, oh my God, that's Clint Eastwood. And he said, and you're Park Overall. Died. Oh, I died. And another time I pulled up to the gate and I said to the guard, I said, they told me to come to this gate, and I'm going to tell you I've never been allowed in this gate. And he said, and I'm going to tell you, you still aren't.
Oh, that's funny. The how about Kirsty McNichol?
Christy's lovely. I hope she's still with her wife or however partner, whatever you say. I'm crazy about her partner. I forget her name, but if she walked in here, I would know her. And it's just been a long time. And I knew that Christy would always do well with her partner, that they would be happy and everything would be okay. Hope they're still together. Sure that they are. I just am sure. I have no idea, but I bet you.
So Christy, and then Dinah Manoff,
Yeah.
you guys did a pilot together before Empty Nest.
Yes, we did. The line.
Yeah.
I learned all I needed to know about Dinah one day, and it's a great story, I think. Dinah and I did not get on well. One day, her mother was on the show. So there was Lee Grant for the whole week. And at the end of the day, the producers come in and trailing all their little secretaries and whatnot, and they give notes. You sit there and take notes. Here's Lee Grant. And we all sit down in the living room for notes. And Lee Grant suddenly says, and I'm sitting beside Dinah, and Lee Grant, who is lovely and beautiful, said, "Oh, I have Karen's script. Who is Karen? Who is Karen? Where is Karen?" And she gets up and she walks across the living room, and she and this under five exchange scripts. And she comes back making a big to-do and sits down. Hush, baby. And Dinah, under her breath, which I overhear, says, "It's a wonder I'm all right." That wonderful. I'm sorry about my dog. I have behavioral issues in the home.
No worries. So you got to be Laverne Todd on Empty Nest and The Golden Girls and Nurses, the spinoff of Empty Nest.
Gosh, that's right. I did, didn't I? Yeah. Yeah. Nurses. Yeah.
So Park, at the beginning, here we are, Empty Nest. This is huge, right? I mean, this is like, you're on like one of the biggest sitcoms, 3 multiple award nominations for you and the show. So it's huge. And then you mentioned earlier that at some point, this turned out not to be your life choice. When did you know that acting just wasn't the path?
I had read a novel that was so good. I turned to the back of the book and there he was. And I called him, and it was a child abuse attorney named Andrew Vax. And he answered his phone, and it began a life change for me in dealing with that author. Children can't afford an attorney, so he sold novels so he could represent child abuse victims. And one day he said to me, "What you do isn't real." And I realized that was true. And I enjoy my environmental work much more, and it is real. And it's also challenging. And you can say, well, isn't acting challenging? Yes, very. But now think about what you have to do. You take something that's already prepared. You didn't prepare it like you do as a comedian. You didn't do that. Writers did. And then you memorize that. So you're spending your time memorizing the words of others to deliver, to bring laughter or drama, whatever, to an audience that wants to consume that. That in itself is a very strange job. That's why I think theater is so much more important, because like I said, it's the wavelength. You feel it. It's there. It's in the room. With TV and movies, it's not that at all. It's an entirely different thing.
Talk a little bit about your environmental, you're huge in that, right? You've taken down nuclear fuel services and paper companies and making Tennessee safe for all.
Well, if anybody realized how bad East Tennessee was, they would be horrified, and all these Yankees wouldn't be moving in. Eastman, y'all remember Kodak? Eastman Kodak, now it's Eastman Chemical. Today's issue is, remember the TVA coal ash spill?
I don't.
Oh, really? You don't? That was a big deal. A electric plant, built coal ash. Well, that stuff's hot, as in radioactive. That's what I'm dealing with here. And sure enough, there's vanadium, beryllium, and barium. And you see, anything with an IUN is hot. And these are earthen brooms, they don't have concrete lining or even plastic. So that's today's new terror. So this is how I busy myself, and I love it. I just love it. I had rather an epiphany talking to this guy. He was such a lovely, lovely man, and has been there 37 years. That's a long time to work for a chemical company, don't you think?
That is a long time to work anywhere, yes.
Yes, I thought so too. Anyway, it was a heartening sort of conversation, and he took an hour with me to educate me and to help me understand. The problem is, once I understand, then I become a little bit difficult because the problem with America is Citizens United. If you're going to have economic development and money and corporations running things, then there is no chance for any of us to have quality lives because the pollution is going to be so overwhelming. We're not going to make it. And by that, in East Tennessee, because the Hill people would work, we've been long damaged in a terrible, terrible way with nuclear, Tennessee and nuclear, with munitions, with bomb parts, with low enriched uranium, with high enriched uranium. I could go on. And then Eastman Chemical is chemical. So I'm just surrounded by really treacherous corporations that are not behaving well at all. And EPA Region 4, which is Atlanta, I'm actually told by ex-employees that they sit around all day and watch movies and make $100,000 a year on their computer. So it's tiring, very tiring. No one's at home. They're at home after a big accident. Oh, they'll roll in with the press and take care of things then. But in the paperwork, all is not right. And nobody is doing anything because they don't teach us civics and nobody's paying attention. Everybody just assumes everybody's honest. Well, guess what? They're not.
Well, Park, I think it's extremely noble that you chose this path and that you're helping people. And I imagine your notoriety helps to get more attention than maybe just an average person might get.
That's how we did it on Champion International, was we got a primetime live spot on that. Of course, that was 97 or 94, 98, something 90s. So it's been a long time. And now, when you get older, to memorize a script now, if I were to do something else, let's say I was to, the time to invest in that would take away from the time I'm investing in this. You got to understand, I'm not a scientist, so I have to start at square one with the chemicals and the aspects of the chemicals and what happens with other chemicals and all of that stuff. And nobody's doing that work except the corporations. It's very troubling. Think about it. And then what they've done is figure out ways to make it acceptable when it really isn't. We looked at the nuclear plant up here, fuel for nuclear submarines. And I always thought that was interesting because when we were troubling with the people that blow themselves up and stuff, how many submarines do you need in the desert? I just can't figure it personally. So this rattle trap up here, and we did a cancer study, and indeed there is 1/3 higher cancer rate here near this plant, 50-mile radius, Nuclear Fuel Services, Irwin, Tennessee, than there is in the rest of the state. And we traced uranium bomb grade 235, 6, and 9 to their doorstep, and some plutonium. And there was 238 on my property, my river property. We drink this water.
They need to make a movie, an Aaron Brockovich movie on Park overall. All the good stuff that you're doing.
There are wonderful stories. My friend, she died. She lived a hard life, but she said, "Hell, Park, I know the guard up there. We go up there, I'll fuck him." She said, "You can just you slip in there, throw you a mason jar over there. I'll do it." And of course, we never did, but I believe she's telling me the truth.
I believe your friend would have taken one for the team, for sure. So, Park, I love all the stories that you've shared. I love your focus in life right now, just making the world a better place.
Thank you.
And thank you for spending this time with me. It means a lot to me. Thank you.
I adored every minute, and you're just a darling boy. I'm just crazy about you. Now, I'm crazy about my boy in Ohio, too.
Yes. Paul Lander is awesome.
Yes. And I'm glad he brought us together.
Yes, me too. Very happy that we have met.
Me too.
Well, thank you,
Thank
Park.
you, darling. I hope to see you again.
I hope to see you again. Mwah.
Bye, darling. Thank you.
All right. How amazing was Park overall? Such a delightful person. I put a link to her Tonight Show appearance with Jonathan Winters and Robin Williams in the show notes. That is totally worth checking out. Make time for that. Well, can't believe it. The interview's over. Another huge thank you to my special guest, Park Overall. And of course, a huge thank you to all of you for coming back week after week. It means the world to me, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Classic Conversations. If you like what you heard, don't be shy and give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. Also, why not go ahead and tell all your friends about the show? You strike us as the kind of person that people listen to. Thanks in advance for spreading the word, and we'll catch you next time on Classic Conversations.